Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. And these weekly confessions run maybe a little bit over 15 minutes, but not by much, I hope, today. Session 6 continues to be an exploration of what it takes for the AI models to extract information from our content, from our websites and other things. So welcome to episode 26 of Confessions of an SEO. And this is about HouseFresh and a purported recovery in search results. So, however, in my estimation, based on what I'm seeing, I think this recovery, while it's exciting, may just be the harbinger of its own demise. And there's no one but HouseFresh with their hands on the wheel. So let's talk about, the hype versus the reality. If you've been anywhere near the technical SEO circles, Twitter or LinkedIn, over the past week, you probably have seen the screenshots, and the mood in the industry is almost triumphant about this. People are practically weeping with joy as they point to HouseFresh, the independent publisher that became the poster child for Google's algorithmic casualties. And everyone is celebrating a massive viral 10,000% organic traffic recovery. And the industry narrative is so clean and so emotionally satisfying. Look, HouseFresh is back on page 1. Google is finally getting it right again. Real editorial merit and original testing actually are winning in the end. Oh, my sweet summer children. It is a beautiful story. It really is. And it's the kind of David and Goliath tale that we all like because we feel warm and fuzzy inside. But as forensic data scientists and technical architects, when it comes to our sites, we cannot afford to rely on emotional narratives. We have to look at the cold, hard math. And when you run a deep forensic audit on HouseFresh's active digital footprint, like I did, a chilling reality emerges. Now, are you ready for this? At the time of their traditional organic search rankings rebounding, after the December core update completed, they suffered an 80% collapse in real-time AI search citations. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. They aren't witnessing a permanent resurrection. All right? They are living inside a temporary, I'll call it a closed circuit bubble. And today I'm going to dissect the ultimate accidental heist of Google's crawler schedule and how AI knows first while Googlebot is the last to get the memo, and how publishers like HouseFresh are unwittingly engineering their own ultimate displacement in the age of conversational search. So grab your coffee. We're going to go deep. All right. So let's start with the immediate technical mystery. How does a site with a 94 mismatch between what they tell the machine versus what they tell a human? I'm going to describe this a little bit more, but that is an incredible heavy rendering deficit. Less than 6% is visible on the page. So they say all this stuff, and only 6% is what a human can see. So how does that site suddenly rocket back to the top of legacy search results without Google's rendering system literally slamming on the brakes? Now, for those who have been paying attention, HouseFresh is not a new site to me either. They published 2 years ago a piece declaring that Google was killing independent publishers. I've spent a lot of time looking at that site back then. It's full of table of content links. I think they started to clean up some of the semantic overlay a little bit more. They've adjusted the layout, all the normal things. But by rights, based on my previous knowledge of the site, this should not be happening, and yet it is. Thus, it warrants a deep dive. So like I say, To understand this, you have to kind of go and look at some pages. And specifically, and you will find something extraordinary. And it's an anomaly. Their sitemap.xml and their robots.txt files, those URLs are returning a 200 status. However, there's a 0-byte payload. What does that mean? The files are there. They aren't 404'd. They're real pages. They return a live status, but they are completely blank pages. Now, I went to the Wayback Machine and I discovered that there is no proof that this case was ever different. So I don't think it's a deliberate effort on their part. I think it's actually an accident. So under standard web protocols, and for those who like to have details, there's a technical requirement, RFC 9309, and it's in the robots exclusion protocol. And I'll put the link to it if you'd like to look it up. Anyway, it says a 0-byte robots text file represents a clean slate. It translates to a crawler that it's a universal allow all instruction. But for Google's search crawler, the impact of a blank sitemap and a blank robots text configuration is far more profound. Google's crawler scheduler is first and foremost a cost accounting system. It's designed to avoid wasting millions, probably billions of dollars in CPU and GPU rendering cycles. And to do this, Google has historically operated on a 2-wave indexing system. This is what I observed and tested daily for almost 5 years. So the wave 1, the first pass, is the fast, cheap HTML only crawl. And wave 2, or the rendering pass, this is the expensive web rendering service machine. And this is where Googlebot actually loads the browser, executes JavaScript, and looks at the visual layout. And to manage this second wave, this rendering crawl, Google uses a differential delta machine. Now, what the fuck does that mean? Well, this is functionally new. And this is what caused me to end the traditional indexation project, because this differential trigger is the physical trigger for the Symmetry gate audit. Now, what that does, the scheduler compares the incoming last modified timestamps on your XML sitemaps, and it compares it against its cached index to see if anything has changed. And if there are no change signals, Googlebot stands down to save money. And if it's different, the scheduler will initiate a rendering crawl and say, it's okay, go ahead and spend some money. So the Symmetry gate itself is a rendering level verification process, and it checks for a one-to-one parity between the raw HTML source and the fully rendered DOM, what the page looks like. And the test is operationally to answer the question, do you tell the machine the exact same information as you tell the human? Now, the thing about this is Google doesn't run every crawled page through this expensive check on every pass. They stagger it. So what happens in a situation if there's a sitemap that returns 0 content? Well, the ability to be able to tell the scheduler to initiate a rendering crawl, that goes away. If there are no sitemap URLs to compare, there's no timestamps to evaluate, and no dynamic triggers to prompt a rendering level re-evaluation. So effectively, Google's scheduler, lacking any active change signals, is forced to fall back to what is actually, I guess you could say, accidental structural freeze, a blackout. This reminds me of a movie. And I'm thinking of Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock in the bus movie called Speed. You know, the scene where they find out there's a closed circuit television feed and the bad guy's watching. And that circuit, they modify a little bit and they set it on a continuous 10-second loop of the bus with all the people on it. So the hijacked bus and its hostages can slip off the bus, but the bad guy's monitor shows nothing changing. Well, this is HouseFresh right now. Google's traditional wave, that HTML first pass, reads the raw HTML, and it sees there what has to be described as their exceptional, deep, and highly qualitative original product reviews, because the text reveals detailed, highly valuable information. Google's quality classifiers reward it. The HTML is accepted at face value. And there's a lot of search for these terms, so it's getting asked a lot. But because no active sitemap updates are signaling a change to the scheduler, the expensive Wave 2 rendering pass is shelved, at least for the time being. The site's massive rendering cost deficit is temporarily insulated behind this accidental shield of its server. It's saying, we haven't changed anything. So here's where the closed circuit loop breaks down, because I know everybody heard that and went like, oh, great, I'll get rid of my sitemap. Keep listening. Real-time AI retrieval engines do not look at Google's frozen search cache. This example couldn't state this more clearly, and it's not what you're being told by people who say this is how AI works. The research like this is showing something exactly the opposite. When a user asks Gemini, Perplexity, or Claude a conversational question, those AI engines, while they may use Google's legacy index as a first hop to kind of locate your URL, they cannot access Google's internal pre-rendering visual cache. So they have to compile their own answers. They must execute what is a high-velocity, real-time HTTP fetch directly to your site, your live server. And when these real-time AI crawlers hit, let's use HouseFresh's live pages as an example, they don't see a bus full of passengers riding on the bus. They are instantly exposed to what is a catastrophic, huge amount of code, 94.4%, that has nothing to do with what can be seen on the page. So let me break down that number, because this is staggering. I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a one-off page. So I ran Symmetry gate audits across 9 of HouseFresh's highest traffic commercial hubs, their most trafficked pages. And that was on their air purifier for pets page. The HTML code is 185,395 tokens, while the written prose, what people can read on the page, is only 6,737 tokens. So that's that differential. And in that page, that was 96.3% of a code tax. On their best dehumidifier pages, it was 96.3% code tax based on the same differential. And this was across all of them, so that when you averaged it out, it was basically just over 94% of the page's volume is computational noise. So while while legacy offline indexers like Google's web rendering system, they can batch process this massive bloat offline. And they can do it over days, like it doesn't have to be real time. But these RAG generating models, they have to render and tokenize everything instantly, like on the fly. So forcing this AI transformer engine to process basically 94% waste to extract 5% semantic value is nothing short of waste. And I use the word compute tax. is how I described the direct cost of resources on the artificial brain that's processing the information. So also, these pages have lots of hidden structural elements, interactive widgets, headers, they've got table of contents. And so the AI rendering engine has to allocate even extra memory and processing cycles to resolve to a true visual layout. That sounds like Core Web Vitals. Now you're following me. This structural asymmetry, this is what triggers automated fidelity downloads. We call this site suppressions. And they do so to protect the search engine's operating margins. So under these strict sub-second, how much time can we spend here? What happens when AI crawlers flood HouseFresh's high overhead pages with parallel concurrent requests to parse all that bloat? This was most likely will trigger, if I were looking at their server logs, I'm going to say a lot of 429s and 503 errors. The real-time AI parsers, when they get those status codes, they're forced to drop the connection and they exclude the site entirely. Now, going back to the data, this explains a dramatic split that you can see in SEMrush data for HouseFresh as of June 26. So basically for organic search, they're sitting very nicely at 266,000 monthly clicks. That's great. But underneath that, they also show an AI search tab. HouseFresh has collapsed to essentially 266 monthly clicks when they used to get a whole lot more. HouseFresh had 1,300 cited pages, and they're down to 255. Now, operationally, what that means in normal language is that the AI retrieval systems purged and de-indexed all the chunks that they had in their they had set up in this temporary rag and go section. And traditionally, Googlebot is still the last to get the memo because its rendering audit is shelved inside this frozen cache. So the AI engine has already run the numbers on the live server, saw the high rendering text, and shut the gate. Period. End of it. All of this is under the hood of this celebrated return to what is considered its rightful place in the SERPs as an independent publisher. But there's another shoe about to drop. This technical debt that has to be recomputed with every query isn't just locking them out of citations. It is actually facilitating the theft of their intellectual property. And this brings me to a concept, and I want every publisher listening to understand. There is let's call it a semantic absorption. If you do not secure your site's structural and semantic integrity, AI crawlers will still crawl your raw HTML. But at some point, they will freeze that knowledge, meaning they will take into their knowledge graph your high value, high quality, original product insights. And they're going to assimilate those facts directly into their non-real time parameter weights. So they aren't going to go outside of what they know to pick up that question. So they're going to have it in their own pocket. They stopped paying for your information gain. They just took it. And during that absorption process, this is how they do it, because your site lacks a hardened machine-readable signal architecture, that model mathematically strips out your brand entity from the data. And that is and should be a hard pill to swallow. The model now knows that Model X is the best air purifier for pet hair because your writer spent weeks testing it. And when a conversational searcher asks for a recommendation, the model will output that exact answer, but it will do so without generating a real-time retrieval hop. So it won't cite your site, it won't send you a click, it won't serve your display ads. You have essentially donated your proprietary hard-won research to train the very systems that are replacing your traffic. So it's a tragedy of unintended self-sabotage. By celebrating this lagging traditional organic rebound while leaving their live code unoptimized for AI to quickly and inexpensively extract it, HouseFresh is again building their house on a decaying foundation. So how do we solve this? How does an independent publisher protect their IT and survive the transition to real-time generated answers? Well, first we must ruthlessly eliminate fragment noise and this high computational navigational elements. Like many legacy sites, HouseFresh relies on JavaScript-driven table of contents, jump links that trigger immense DOM depth and processing latency. Publishers have to replace these unoptimized frameworks with lightweight native solutions. I have a helpful TOC plugin. It establishes a true anchorless semantic navigation. So it provides a clean native routing map all at the same time with zero fragment noise, and the humans can still click their way down the page. The second thing, have to actively enforce the symmetry gate. You must achieve a strict one-to-one mathematical parity between your raw HTML source code and what your browser presents. And you can start today. This is where the Visix Pro software application comes in. By deploying it on your site, you can build an airtight signal architecture. We implement all the things that the AIs like to see so they can come in and trust. It wraps your editorial prose in explicit machine-readable nodes, and it's hard-coded schema with metadata. So when Google Other or these independent AI bots crawl a Visix hardened page, they cannot strip your brand. So anyway, if that's something, I can't imagine anybody not wanting to do this, but if you pass your symmetry gate, that's how you secure your citations in conversational search, because you make it cost less to give you a citation than it does to pay to put your expertise into their parametered knowledge. So the spectacular 10,000% organic rebound we're seeing HouseFresh, it basically has brought it a temporary lease on life, a temporal buffer of perhaps 90 to 180 days before a trigger, and they happen not often, but a trigger will initiate a complete site-wide rendering audit. And during that, it's going to reconcile their what that HTML authority has brought them with the high rendering costs. By treating this organic rebound as a victory without doing what you can to secure the technical foundation is, in my opinion, a fatal mistake. The search ecosystem is decoupling before our eyes. I'll be writing more about how HouseFresh proves this, but in reverse. The era of traditional link-based organic indexation is a lagging indicator of a system in transition. It's not Google will tell the AI, it's that AI is evaluating separately outside of Google search. So the future of discovery belongs to real-time generated answers, conversational interfaces, and RAG retrieval. If you're a publisher, stop looking at your word count. Stop celebrating ranking recoveries without looking at what's happening in the geo for your brand. Look at your DOM depth. Look at your code tax. Ask yourself the very question that matters for your long-term survival. Are you passing the symmetry gate or not? Go to symmetrygate.ai today and find out before it's too late. I'm Carolyn Holzman, and that's it for me this week. Visix Pro creates domains with connected expertise at the lowest computational cost to LLMs. It stands as the definitive global authority on the economy of information extraction at scale. So remember, keep your signals clean, your HTML honest, and I'll see you next week on Confessions.